if this pandemic and the lockdown has taught us anything, is that for the last mile, edtech simply will not work. And there is no alternative to physical schools.
Based on your experience in Tamil Nadu, what is the government or the state government doing in terms of how are they thinking about the process of reopening schools? Do they want children to start going back to public schools? Are they trying to push a sort of a digital solution, but at the same time also saying it's important to go to school? So how are they thinking about this problem?
I think Tamil Nadu has been extremely cautious when it comes to opening schools, right? I mean, most public places or all public places have been reopened, but schools have also reopened, but for for higher grades. Initially, for the longest time, as you know, Tamil Nadu had the highest caseload after Maharashtra. So I think the government was extremely careful about, how to kind of navigate this. So I think. More or less, this is a washout year when it comes to education, at least for the lower classes, and that is how it is probably going to be perceived. There's just one more month remaining in the academic year, so it's unlikely that schools for the lower classes will reopen this year. We're looking at June for schools reopening in Tamil Nadu at least. And the other thing that the government did was it sort of refused to do anything that was not seen as being equitable. For instance, tech has become everybody's favorite word and is the buzzword. But even in a state like Tamil Nadu, a so-called, developed and high GSDP sort of a state, only about 20% of children who go to government schools have access to a mobile phone with internet. So if the primary mode of dissemination for the government happens to be, say, the mobile phone, then you're effectively leaving that 80% out. The government took a stance, and rightly so, in saying that they will not rely only on mobile technology to disseminate learning. So a lot of mass media platforms were used, like television and radio, and even physical delivery of books to students. IVRS was used in conjunction because 95% of students have a regular phone. Given that 95% of students had the feature phone, IVRS was, I think, a very unique sort of idea that the state government used as well. And I don't see much of this changing, given that there's just one more month of the academic year left. Then there is elections after that, which means that a lot of the teaching force, as you know, in any state gets deployed for election duty. So teachers are going to be busy with that. So April and May will probably be, again, considered summer months, even though the last, I think, 10 months have almost been a break. It's still April and May still, I think, are going to be regarded as a summer break. And then hopefully children come back to school in June or July. June is typically when they would come back, but given that maybe the government would need some time to, set things right, July may be when schools reopen. And the hope is that things go back to some semblance of normalcy, because if this pandemic and the lockdown has taught us anything, is that for the last mile, edtech simply will not work. And there is no alternative to physical schools, at least for the last mile. And it's been a difficult, I think, dilemma for the government, right, to kind of prioritize health or education. And given the circumstances, I think the stance has been right, that health had to, and even if schools had reopened, I don't believe parents would have sent children to schools given the threat, right? So the hope is that things settle down, the pace of vaccination picks up, parents are less fearful, and life goes back to how it was come June. Well, fingers crossed, but